Who's the hardest?
Don't know who's the hardest. Another episode. Before I introduce this person here, I'd like to say that he's really instrumental in the UK scene. I'm talking before any of this drill, any of what people class real rap. I'd like to say you was fundamental in that era, where there weren't no social media, there weren't no one, they couldn't download music or like that. Like you was really out.
We had to work it out, man.
Right. You had to be your own machine. Man never have no machine behind, man. And I remember bucking this person. You lot obviously know who it is because you're seeing him already. But before I say his name, I remember seeing this person on the high street, Oxford Street, with like 6, 7 youths around him, maybe more. You get me?
We got all of them, all of them. Black Mob, D21, D-Raw, Daily, all the generals and that.
I swear, dark and cold, that was your little stomping ground around there.
They had the shop around the corner, so we'd have all the youths on the strip, and then we'd have dark and cold just around the back. And it was like, so that was like home.
I remember you lot had that a lot, because you got to remember, you see the city, the man them's more in the ends, innit? Like on the blocks and everything. The man don't really divert and go to the city this era, this time of when you lot was out
obviously
there.
now, you know, the funny thing, I see it now, innit? Like
You see it now, you see man shotting trainers out there, networking and that.
You see, obviously people have got more situations now, so they're in like Central, Hatton Gardens, so you see like more, you know, labels giving out office space or whatever. So we see it now. You know, back then, me and my lot, we had an office block and studios in Hatton Gardens. From then, we had offices in Tottenham Court Road, and because we knew what it was, that was the maths in it. Like, you know, that was what it took to get in the thing. Then, yeah, if you ain't got a central address or a central phone number, forget it.
But this is it. I kind of skipped it. I jumped it. So let me take it right back to the essence behind your name. What's the reasoning behind your name, Mike GLC? What's it about? Let the people know that.
The semantics of it.
Even the abbreviation of the GLC, like people might think, right, it's a Mercedes. You know like that?
The GLC is basically, my uncle got murdered, I got his names. So I got George Coombs. Rest in peace, Junior Coombs.
Rest in peace, Unks. How you mean?
He got one of the first people to ever die on farm. He got murdered, and I got his middle names. So that's why I knew I had to represent that. So the Coombs is my uncle, my mum's last name. So I was the last one with it when she passed as well. So obviously come from Jamaica, come from Family Bear, and then I give it to my son. I love my baby mother for that because she always let me give it to my son, rather than take her name. So we managed to carry on. You get me? So the whole GLC,
the legacy,
the GLC is just, you know, it's gonna carry on. So that's what it is. The Mike GLC and obviously Michael Coombs, and that's what it is. It's my real name.
So what inspired you to make music? What inspired you to rap?
Cerebral, we got a similar story in it. Care homes, Borstals, a hyperactive mind. I was a hyperactive youth. I ended up in care at like 6. And you know,
sorry, not to interrupt. You see, when you say you're hyperactive, yeah, because I was touching base on this with J Rock on the episode with J Rock. Man saying like, you see like autism, ADHD, OCD, little stuff like that. Back then, there weren't no names for these things. So when man's banging out, getting in trouble in class, getting sent to detention, your parents don't even understand why. They're just thinking you're a bad you.
But you know what's weird? Yeah, that's exactly.
And it could fall down to something as simple as being dyslexic. So you act up, you bang out on them angles there. So you're saying that you was wild and that. Did you ever get screened?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. I guess I was one of the ones that got screened early, you know, like that.
You feel what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand this, bro.
Yeah, so I get, when I look back now, like I looked up my old care home. So my first care home was
say he's banging out in there?
No, it's called Therapeutic School for Kids with Behaviour Issues now. So back then it must have been, but back then we knew it as care home. So
and
like
that's it, that was the title for it. Just bad kids go there and that's it.
I just remember like, I just no one would keep me. So like, primary school, and my mum was sick as well. So I think the two kind of just amalgamated. He's a fucked up you, and she's always sick. I've got social, you know, care and all that. So they sent me to care. And the funny thing, I was watching when you asked about like the start of music, I was watching LA Cool J, and and it's nuts because my start's different to a lot of people. I can really look at like American artists and really put them in places that mean something really significant to the rise of what I created. So I learned how to rap from LA Cool J on Bad.
Imagine that.
literally.
Imagine that.
You know where I'm coming from?
Big up LL Cool J.
Because that's all I had in the care home was a vinyl of LA Cool J.
Swear down the one record, you say you had that on rotation more time.
Buzzed it. So like, you know, and I can remember the NWA hit, and I can remember being in that care home and walking down that dorm room and hearing NWA for the first time and feeling a certain way, and you know, bullying the way I used to watch MTV rap. So really, my upbringing really is integral to how I went on to see music, if it makes sense. Hence why I reckon I was one of the first doing it, and hence why I kind of think that my trajectory is different to a lot of people's. I saw an interview today where I think we're talking about Spray with Lime. I said, you know, Mike's one of the first street rappers, but I wouldn't put myself anywhere. I even made a post today, you know, and it's on the negative side of things, but I'm driving a line in the sun saying, this ain't UK rap. And that part of that is part that I feel that the disrespect from the UK rap industry, period. I mean, from the music industry, not just the UK rap industry. There's not a UK rap industry. There's a music industry, which is a bunch of friends. So the disrespect from that alone. But duly to be, I'm not UK rap. I've had no trajectory in UK rap. I've never had a record deal. I've never had anything to do with it. I created this flow by myself. People nicked parts of it and took it for their own. I set up street teams. We had our own offices. We had our builders. I've had no connection with anything to do with the UK music industry in my whole career. So like, and I'm trying to really make that really clear, because a lot of people often think like, right,
people assume that you did though.
Well, people often think like, right, why didn't Mike get what he was due? Why is everyone else like, oh, Mike's obviously clearly better than them, and they obviously clearly nick parts of his formula, nick parts of his flow, and the only thing I can tell people is like, I was never part of it. I was never in it. If you check the trajectory, I was the first person ever to do a DVD in the country. So when that DVD, Long Good Friday, is the first time anyone ever done a DVD. You would catch me being a lot of firsts, but you won't see me being a part of anything.
And what was that, Long Good Friday?
Long Good Friday, first European artist, rap or otherwise, to have a DVD. So I was a lot of firsts, but I was never part of anything. So a lot of people took the lead from what we might have done at the time, and they expanded on it, but we was never part. So my whole trajectory has always been this. So learning rap from Care, and then coming there to London, when I started rapping, no one listened to rap. So I kind of had to create a flow, and I think later on down the line, I started to hear, way later on down the line, like way later, the first rappers that I heard that had flows that we think were similar with like Out of Town, Nottingham, Bristol. But later on, then I started to hear people like yourself, the PDCs, the Shacks, and that's when I thought, yeah, home. And if you notice, even at that point, that's why I don't have any industry ties. That's why I'm trying to grab why everyone else is over.
I get it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my trajectory into the industry.
So when could you say you penciled your first rhyme, and when did you hit the booth first?
From Care. Everything would have been from Care.
Oh, so you done everything in and around that time?
Everything from Care. Everything from that care home. By the time I come back from that care home, I could rap, I could dance, I could draw, One thing about them care homes is you got a lot of time to learn shit.
Was you treated well in there?
This was the irony. It was an oxymoron, and I appreciate that oxymoron so much. In other words, they gave a fuck about you. You got loved by the place itself, so they looked out. And again, I'm very grateful for that, because this is like in the
yeah, because man could have been on the roads.
Not only that as well, no, but even that aside, that's not even so much. No, not even so much for that. If I'm honest, like being on the roads and being back in London wouldn't have been that bad. And I think that's partly one of the reasons why I've always had the perspective I've had, because I've always looked at it like a lot of these guys created these problems for themselves. Because if I stayed in London and, you know, lived on the estate with my mum and then went to college and all that, my life probably would be way better. So it's not so much that, because I look at it like that's, but it was more that what was happening at that time in England. If you're black and you're going into the care system, you never seen films like Scum and all them kind of films there? That's what was happening. Like, that's what was happening in real time for black youths in the system.
That era there,
like, they was going into the system and never coming out, bro. And not even just that, like, they was just never coming out. The places that had them, they were like prisons. They were different, bro. And that's what was really happening.
That's when they were giving them more liquid caution, turning them mental, and
I'm really
in
that. I'm really coming. So even when you clock my first album, that's when we've got all them kind of skits, because it's really that period I'm going through the care homes. But for some reason, there was two things happened.
You could either make or break you.
Well, this was the thing, and it made man.
The same with Pen.
Like, it made man. And that's and I think that's what a lot of people, not even a lot of people, but a lot of what was Mike GLC went on to be, it was actually made then, if that makes sense. So, but like, I appreciate the fact that it could have been, they could like, listen, black people were coming in that system and never coming out, bro. And even when we're going into the care homes, I mean, I've got a relationship with some of my, some of my family, me and Kello from Tottenham, guy, one of those from Tottenham, we was there together, and we're fighting every day. These are people's thieves. These are marks. Like we got like we're hard.
Same, I got them same Jones, bro.
But the thing is, so it made us hard. Like if you come to the hood, you know the man, them, we're hard. Like it made us physically hard, and we're known for it. But at the same time, the place gave a fuck. So if a man called me a nigger and I smacked him over, I'm not gonna get in trouble for this. But we can have that fight. We might have a fight, and the teacher might wait for us to finish. It was that kind of, and it was a place that could make you or break you in a sense of like, luckily enough. And when I looked at it the other day, like luckily enough, I didn't make it suck man in, and I didn't want to be nothing but myself in the sense of like, you got man that go in them systems and they come out white boys or they come out a bit funny. But me and mine had enough strength to stand on our pivot. Like, nah, we're here. We kept it. So I got the best out of it because there was so much life lessons
Learn from that
you
situation.
You couldn't even sell a man. Listen, we're selling cigarettes for £2 a piece at 10. Learning life that way around. You know that? So like, there was lessons in that shit.
No, I get that. It definitely does form, man. Do you understand? So you see, like, obviously, you're doing what you're doing with the music and everything. Where do you think your height was? Where do you think the main part of your career was?
Do you know the weirdest thing?
Who's the hardest?